I'd like to talk a little bit about my race in northern Wisconsin, northeast Wisconsin to be precise, in the 8th Congressional District. We all know that we're at a tipping point in American history. We all know that you all are making history today. I'm running against a guy by the name of Dr. Steve Kagan. I have a few primary opponents too, but we'll get there. Dr. Steve Kagan is the Triple Crown winner. Now, my grandfather helped to train sulky racehorses, Morgans, in northern Minnesota, but he never had the Triple Crown winner to run against that I have. Dr. Kagan voted for the stimulus package. He voted for cap and trade and is proud of that vote. Now, this is where it gets interesting. As he was holding teletown conference meetings in the 8th Congressional District, not knowing how he was going to vote, he didn't know how he was going to vote, but his colleagues in Washington on the U.S. House floor were telling me that he was arm twisting to get everybody to step in line with the health care bill. And he was taking full responsibility for it on the House floor. Well, you know, when you've got a politician who says one thing and does another and doesn't have an Irish grandmother, there's only one exit that you can point, and that's the door. Amen. There are clear philosophical differences before all of these congressional and Senate seats before us. And with your help, we can challenge them to think in the right perspective. Let's take a look at these philosophies and see if they match up to you. Instead of supporting competition, they're for bailouts and pork barrel spending. Instead of supporting pro-growth policies, pro-free market competition policies, they're for tightening capital by printing and printing more and more money. Instead of opening the market for freedom, government giveaways to the Middle East to grow trees under the cap and trade that's been passed in the House. And a deficit of $14 trillion seems to make sense for all of the folks in Washington, D.C. Does it make sense for you? No. Let's take a look at the issues that we've been talking about all over northeast Wisconsin. One of them is the 10th Amendment. Yes, the people that I hope to represent not only read the Constitution, they quiz me on it. Isn't that a refreshing thought? The 10th Amendment was put in place by the founders who were extremely wise for one reason. They knew, due to the tyranny of the colonies by the British, by the United Kingdom, at that time it was the British Empire, they knew that they should be fearful of a too powerful government. They knew that powers delegated to the states needed to be in place in order to protect their individual freedoms and liberties. Well, it seems like we need a history lesson to take place in the U.S. House of Representatives, and you and I are about to give it to them. We need to return to those 10th Amendment principles. Another issue they talk about in northeast Wisconsin in the 8th Congressional District is sovereignty. Now, sovereignty can mean a whole lot of different things to a whole lot of different people. It can be the United States government shouldn't have other world powers telling it what to do. It could mean that the United States' self-interest and national interest isn't all around the world trying to take over the entire world as an empire. It could mean the 10th Amendment and making sure sovereignty of the states is intact. But I'd like to talk to you about individual sovereignty. I believe in individual sovereignty and individual liberties, and that's why I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives today. That means that every man, woman, child, and unborn child has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what I'm talking about. You know, our civil liberties have not only been under attack, we're not guessing about these things, but we have had a U.S. House that since the Patriot Act and other pieces of legislation have forgotten that their first and primary responsibility is to read the bills before them and to ensure that the United States Constitution stayed intact. They haven't. I pledge to all of you today, lovers of liberty and freedom, that I won't sign, pass, or do anything unless I've actually read the bill. Other issues we're talking about is the war. I not only support the fact that we should have constitutional wars, I will do everything I can to reinforce the Constitution that before we go to war, we should declare war, and that can only come from the Constitution and the Congress. I'm concerned that our United States military is stretched over 130 countries. I'm concerned that when they come home, we're not standing with our military troops and our veterans that come home that need our support. And the only way to rectify that and the concerns for the deficit and the economic problems is to make sure that we have individuals worthy of leadership going into the U.S. House, as worthy as the soldiers and the leaders on the battlefield who are protecting our freedoms. Now, you knew that we wouldn't get by this little discussion, even though I only have 15 to 20 minutes, without talking a little bit about health care. The free market solutions to our health care cost, and I'm going to emphasize cost, crisis, will not be handled in the nonsense that has just been passed without a bill intact that is so constitutionally challenged that we have at least 20 states already filing against the United States government on your behalf. In 2002, just to give a track record so that you know what I say is going to match out what I've done. In 2002, in putting together that competitive prescription drug purchasing pool, we held hearings all over the state of Wisconsin to get ideas, so we could identify the problems. Those of you in private business, don't you identify the problems first before you charge in and try to do top-down management to tell everybody what to do? We all know that the best ideas come from the ground up. They don't come from the top down. Well, we were able to put together a competitive bid prescription drug purchasing pool, and because of politics, because that's the world we live in, it was only allowed to relate to 2% of the state employees. Do you know how much cost savings we had for 2% of the state employees with competition that works? $25 million. Can you imagine if it would go over 100% of state employees and all local governments, what competition would do to bring down the cost of prescription drugs under your tax-paying wallet? We've got to use free market principles to clean up the waste, fraud, and abuse that threatens this nation more than any dictator ever would.